Hello guys, and welcome to the money challenge. That's right. Sam is with me today, and I'm going to ask Sam what he would do if he had different amounts of money. So that's the plan for today. And Sam, are you excited to do the money challenge?
I would be more excited if I had more money.
Yes, well, hopefully in the future you will have more money, and we'll see. So let's go ahead and begin the money challenge. We're going to start with small amounts of money, and then each time it will increase to larger amounts of money. Now, there are some rules to the money challenge. Number one, you need to spend the money. So you cannot save the money. You need to spend it. The second rule is that you can't use it for an investment of some kind. No investments, the money has to be spent, and you have to spend all of the money. And those are the rules. So let's begin. Sam, what would you do if you won $10?
That is a very good question. If I won $10, I would spend it at McDonald's. I have been craving a McDonald's for a little while now. So if I won $10, I would buy a Big Mac, and I would also buy a milkshake. Unfortunately, that would be all of my money.
Not a bad choice of things to buy. So let me move on to the next amount of money. I think I will go with $100. So what would you do if you won $100?
It is a really good question and a little bit more interesting than the last one. I think if I won $100, I would buy a new sofa. I would buy a new sofa because the sofa in my apartment is very small. It is very uncomfortable. If I bought a new sofa, I would be able to have friends stay at my house. They would be able to sleep on my sofa, and they wouldn't need to buy a hotel. So if I bought a new sofa with that money, it would be really useful, and it would help a lot of my friends out.
Interesting. I think that if you bought a new sofa with the $100, it would have to be a second-hand sofa, right? Because new sofas are very expensive. Let's move on to the... Yeah, right. Let's move on to the next amount of money. We're starting to get a little bit higher now, okay? So Sam, what would you do if you won $1,000?
We are starting to get a bit higher, which means my thoughts can get a bit bigger. If I won $1,000, what would I do with it? I think I would do a few different things. But there is one thing that sticks to my mind. Now, if I had $1,000 that I could spend, I would buy a virtual reality headset. I have wanted a virtual reality headset for a really long time, but unfortunately they are very expensive. So if I had $1,000 that I could spend on whatever I wanted, I think the first thing that I would buy would be a virtual reality headset. But I wouldn't only buy the headset. I think I would also buy the hand controllers. I imagine this would take me quite close to the limit of the money. I expect if I bought these things, it would cost around $700, $800 if I bought good ones. So with the rest of the money, the last $300 or $200, I would buy some virtual reality video games. I would buy some different video games that I could play in virtual reality. That is what I would do if I had $1,000.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice. I'm going to make a bit of a jump here. So we're going into serious amounts of money now. Okay, serious amounts of money. What would you do if you won $100,000?
Oh, that is a very good question. And with $100,000, it wouldn't be easy to spend it all. You would have to spend it on a few different things, I think. But if I had $100,000 ready to spend, I would spend it improving my life here in Chile. I would take around $70,000 and I would buy a nice apartment here in central Santiago. I would buy a nice apartment, an apartment that I liked in a good location that was close to a metro station. That is the first thing that I would do if I had $100,000. That would leave me, after I have bought furniture as well, that would leave me with around $25,000, $20,000. And I think the next thing that I would do is I would buy a car. If I had $20,000 left, I wouldn't buy a luxury car. I wouldn't buy a luxury car because it wouldn't be a good use of my money. But if I had around $20,000, I would spend around $15,000 on it. So I would buy a very safe, a very practical, a very reliable car. The reason I would buy a car is because it would allow me to do some different hikes. If I had a car, I could travel a lot further for my hiking. At the moment, I can only go to hikes using Uber. So if I had a car, it would be much better. I could start going to places that were much further away. Furthermore, with the final $5,000 and the car, I would start skiing. I would buy some basic ski equipment and I would use my car to take me to the ski resorts very close to Santiago. And that is what I would do if I had $100,000.
Wow, seems like you have a lot of ideas for what you would do, which means that you'll probably like the last question of this game. What would you do if you won $100 million, Sam?
Oh, that would be interesting. If I won $100 million, the truth is I wouldn't know what to do with it. I would have no idea what I could possibly do with this money. If I had $100 million, the first thing I would do is I would hire a financial advisor. I would hire a financial advisor to help me spend the money properly. I know the rule was no investments, so we will not make any investments, but the financial advisor would help make sure that I don't spend all of my money and go into debt. So, I think the first thing that I would do is, of course, buy a luxury apartment in a very nice part of the city. I think I would buy a penthouse overlooking the Andes Mountains. That would be my dream. If I had $100 million, did you say 100 million or 100,000? Ah, okay, yeah. If I had $100 million, that is what I would do. I would buy a penthouse in a nice part of Santiago overlooking the Andes Mountains. I would also buy a Ferrari. I am not really into luxury cars, but if I had $100 million, I would probably buy a Ferrari, and I would probably also buy a Bentley or an Aston Martin. I would also consider buying a helicopter, but the truth is helicopters scare me. a little bit. Now, if I had to spend all of the money, I would of course buy an entirely new wardrobe. I would buy all of the clothes I could possibly ever want. I would buy all of the electronics, the gadgets, I would buy everything that I would possibly need. If I had this money, I would give myself a spending budget of maybe $5 million, $6 million, just to buy all of the things that I could possibly want. The rest of the money, I would donate to charity. If I had to spend all of the money and I couldn't save it, I would donate a large proportion of my money to charity. The charities that I would donate to would be environmental charities. I would donate a large portion of my money to try and protect wildlife in the mountains. I think that is what I would do with $100 million.
Wow. Yeah, you clearly have thought about this before, I would say.
One,
but
no.
then I suppose,
No.
well, I guess we're probably never going to have this much money, sadly, unless English Sponge is incredibly successful. Yeah, maybe English Sponge would need a lot of success. Sam, thank you for playing the Money Challenge with me today. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Money Challenge. Bye, guys.